You know, Fox News called me an idiot. That was literally their headline. They called me an idiot.
Folks, we're just eating ourselves alive, man.
MAGA cultist Marjorie Taylor Greene finally responds to Fox News, of all places, calling her an idiot, and she does so in a predictably whiny fashion. And MAGA Republicans in general seem to be in a state of despair, and we have to talk about it. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, listen, as you know, I am a cynic by nature. I'm a pessimist, and I've been doing my best to try to combat those instincts. And the election is rapidly approaching, and there's a lot going on in the world which could inspire a great deal of pessimism in somebody who's just an optimist, right? So I think it's important to actually go through some of the things going on in the opposition camp, because it's not all roses and sunshine. There's a lot that they're dealing with, and rightly so, in a way that might bring a smile to your face. So we're going to start with this one here. Marjorie Taylor Greene is facing backlash, as we've discussed, and we'll get into it as a reminder in just a second. But Fox News recently put out an op-ed, and it was seen everywhere, where they called her an idiot, which is true, by the way. It's a pretty accurate description. And she finally addressed it, and she did so again in a predictably whiny fashion.
And you're right. You know, Fox News called me an idiot. That was literally their headline. They called me an idiot. But what I've done is expose what was already happening in the dark. And I think the beautiful thing about it is that Democrats have to come clean. They were controlling Mike Johnson anyways. He was giving them everything, wide open border policies, fully funded the Biden Department of Justice.
Okay, so that's Marjorie Taylor Greene on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast. Steve Bannon potentially going to be the next White House chief of staff if Donald Trump becomes president. That is truly terrifying. And the op-ed she's referring to is this one here. We've talked about it in previous videos. Marjorie Taylor Greene is an idiot. She's trying to wreck the GOP, and it's an op-ed written by Liz Peek. And listen, this is not a Biden shill. This is not somebody who supports Democrats or President Biden. This is somebody who is Liz Peek is a far-right Republican and Trump supporter, much like Greene herself. She just recognizes that Greene is very often an agent of chaos and doesn't understand the electoral math and the fact that she has no leverage to impose her will on Biden and the Democrats and the rest of the country. And so she's saying, listen, if you're a tried and true MAGA cultist, Marge, you're going about this the wrong way. You're actually making it more likely that Republicans lose the upcoming election, which they're favored to lose the House anyway, and so hopefully that comes to fruition. But in this very lengthy op-ed, she just rakes Marjorie Taylor Greene over the coals. And Marge is obviously very upset by this. She's wounded. Fox News calls me an idiot. No, I'm actually a genius. I'm like so smart because I'm exposing the fact that Speaker Mike Johnson, a far-right theocratic, lunatic, who has overseen and allowed a formal impeachment inquiry into President Biden, who stalled, critical legislation, including government funding and foreign aid packages, et cetera, and so forth, for months at a time, won't work with Democrats on anything, is doing everything in his power to be seen as Donald Trump's best friend, didn't support the expulsion of George Floyd, all these things that hurt Democrats or thwarted Democrats or annoyed Democrats. He's actually in Democrats' back pocket. No, Marge, Mike Johnson's just in the same position that your BFF, Kevin McCarthy, was in. There's fundamentally no difference, which is you don't have the numbers to win the fight. Maybe that'll change after the election. Maybe, God forbid, MAGA sweeps the election. But right now, Democrats have the upper hand. They're more powerful than you. They're more coherent than you. Unlike that sentence. They're better prepared. They know how to govern better. Your far right flank in one chamber of one branch can't be the tail that wags the dog. What have you done? You've exposed nothing. The fact that Democrats are coming to Johnson's defense is hopefully because they have extracted meaningful concessions from Johnson that we just don't know about. Hopefully they've gotten a commitment from Johnson for X, Y, and Z in exchange for, their protection. We don't know. But based on the evidence, there's no reason to believe that Mike Johnson is in the Democrats' back pocket. The fact that he wants to keep the government funded, he's doing it to try to help you all, because he recognizes that you have given President Biden, the Democrats, a gift on a silver platter, which is the message that Republicans don't know how to do anything except complain and nonsense culture war issues that they can't actually govern. Matt Gaetz, who is an erstwhile ally of Marjorie Taylor Greene, is also complaining kind of in a roundabout way that there aren't more like him and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and that, listen, we need some far-right fanatics if we're going to change things, for the worse, obviously, in Washington. This is what he had to say to Kimberly Guilfoyle, who is married to, I can't remember if it's Eric or Don Jr., something like that. She's in the Trump orbit. I can't remember which brother she's married to. But anyway, this is what he had to say.
Because I need backup in Congress. It's not enough just to have a small handful of us fighting for the president, fighting to expose these lies and all of this corruption. We need legions. We need people to win elections, from my friend Brandon Herrera in Texas to Adam Morgan in South Carolina. They're challenging incumbents, and I think they represent where we need to bring the Republican Party to a fighting party. We cannot go back to the days of the Mitch McConnells and the Paul Ryans and the Kevin McCarthys. We've got to have this new fired up populism and this new America First energy. And
you know what's hilarious about this? Listen, obviously, I understand the sympathy towards populism. And certainly progressive policies, right-wing populism is insane. And what I would tell Matt Gaetz is, he's denigrating Mitch McConnell. And Mitch McConnell is his own brand of evil. But Mitch McConnell has actually had more of a material impact on the Republican Party, like in terms of the overall win-loss ratio. McConnell's put more wins on the board for Republicans, certainly than Donald Trump has ever, or Matt Gaetz or anybody else. It's because of Mitch McConnell that you all have a 6-3 conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court. Well, Donald Trump appointed them. Yes, sure, he was part of the process, but any Republican in his position would have done the same thing. So it's not a unique Trump issue. And it was because of McConnell's machinations. McConnell is the reason that the federal judiciary had been so lopsided with young, aggressive conservatives. It was his machinations that contributed to that. So it's so funny that you're denigrating McConnell and you have contributed to his sidelining, because you all may destroy the country, you all may win elections, but in terms of fundamental changes which advantage your party, you will never be Mitch McConnell. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I digress, because again, they're two different flavors of evil. Dan Bongino, a Fox News correspondent, he is also in a state of despair. I've never seen him so distraught, and I love it. It nourishes me, his misery. Check it out.
Folks, we're just eating ourselves alive, man. We spent, 2 weeks going after operatives on our side. We had our own people I supported going after our own people. Then we spent, a week talking about Kristi Noem's dog. I love dogs, man. Don't shoot a dog. Okay?
Kristi Noem shot the dog. That was an unforced error. Kristi Noem volunteered that anecdote. No one would have ever found out about that. It's not like the dog's alive to tell the tale. Because she's an idiot. And it's because you all have this stupidly toxic, deranged sense of machismo. You know why she volunteered that anecdote, Dan? Is because of idiots like you, because you all have convinced people, listen, real masculinity in the Republican Party is just a bunch of violence and murder and, just shooting things. Of course, this is where it leads. You all have cultivated that mentality. So of course she would overstep because she's so stupid. But you set her up for it, people like you. So again, I delight in your despair. Charlie Kirk, also not happy with where things are going. And he acknowledges that there are certain components of President Biden's campaign which are just unambiguously superior to that of the Trump campaign, even though overall the election is neck and neck.
And Joe Scarborough this morning, they had a whole segment on Joe Biden's superior ground game. And they're right. They're right. Joe Biden has over 600 full-time staff on the ground within the main states. He has 44 offices in Wisconsin alone. 44. The bad news is I do not know if we have the infrastructure, if we have the troops, the plumbing to translate the public sentiment into election success.
That's the thing, though. Yes, President Biden right now is very unpopular and has been for some time. But when it comes to the alternative, guys, Donald Trump has baggage. Right now, you have so many advantages, Charlie. It's actually kind of embarrassing, right? People talk about, Biden's advantages. Yes, he has the incumbency advantage, but that's basically it. Every election is typically a referendum on the sitting president, Republican or Democrat. And in many respects, Republicans have so many political headwinds at their disposal. People are upset at the economy, even though the economic numbers, and we'll do a video about this later, are just objectively good. The macroeconomic metrics for Biden's economy are objectively good. The same macroeconomic metrics that we've always used to evaluate every economy. They're so good. And you'll actually be shocked at how desperate the Republicans are to paint Biden's economy as bad. We'll get to that. It doesn't matter. The perception is very favorable to the Republicans. The perception is Biden's economy is terrible. People are upset about the situation at the southern border, even though Republicans, as far as I'm concerned, they own it because they deliberately, cynically tanked a bipartisan border bill designed to address this issue purely and publicly. They've admitted it repeatedly. Mitch McConnell's recently admitted it. We've done a video about it to help Donald Trump in an election season. It's all their fault. They get graded on a curve. Time and time again, it is a fact. We've proven it. And yet they still struggle to win elections in the age of Trump because their policy solutions, to the extent that they talk about them, are wildly unpopular. Number one, it's true. So even if they have a problem, which is fodder to win elections, when these Republicans propose a solution, hey, you know what you do when the economy, you don't like the economy? How about we cut taxes for the rich? And everyone who's upset about the economy is like, no, that's really stupid. So they put like that, they're that meme of the bike rider who puts a steel pipe into their own bike and they flip over. They do this to themselves. Charlie Kirk and a lot of others just genuinely believe that people being upset with Biden and the Democrats automatically equals popularity and support for Republicans and Donald Trump. And that's just not true. Two things can be true simultaneously. People can be mad at the incumbent president, rightly or wrongly, depends on the issue. And that doesn't mean an automatic support for these far-right fascist lunatics. Food for thought. Now, the last thing I'll say here is you've got Simon Rosenberg, who's, again, Democratic operative. We reference him a lot. He's the eternal optimist. And he actually has this, we're not going to read the whole things, but in his latest blog of the Hopium Chronicles, he says, in 538's national presidential polling average, Biden has gained 1.7 points against Trump in recent weeks. And the general election head-to-head is essentially tied. They've also seen a 3.5 point gain for Democrats in recent months in 538's congressional generic. And Dems now have a slight lead, though it too is essentially tied. A majority of the national polls this week have Biden tied or ahead. Okay. So folks, we do have some good news. It's going to be a chore. It's going to be profoundly difficult. There are a lot of things going on in this country that will have a potentially deleterious impact on the election. But it's not all bad news. Right now, MAGA is in chaos. They are in despair. Let it nourish you. Feed it. The bullies, these fascist bullies, are weeping. We should delight in that. And there's also some good news for Democrats and the president with respect to polling. Let me know what you think in the comments.